Hi, welcome to my parent information video. I'll be talking about myself a little bit, my philosophy of teaching. I'll be going over the curriculum that we'll be going over with the fifth graders this year, and then a little bit just about the classroom and expectations and things like that. Try to keep it brief so you don't have to spend your entire night watching this. So a little bit about me. I'm from St. Paul, born and raised, and I went to Holy Spirit School from kindergarten through eighth grade. Then I went right across the street to Cretin-Derham Hall and spent all 4 years there. Then for my undergraduate, I went to University of St. Thomas and studied geography and environmental studies. And the last week of my senior year of college, I got a job at a school, and it completely derailed what I thought I wanted to do. And I knew I had to go back and get my teaching license. So while I was doing that, I was the director of an extended day program at Holy Spirit and taking night classes to get my teaching license, and took those classes at Hamlin. But then right after I got my teaching license, instead of going right for a job here in America, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to do something unique and interesting. So I went and taught in Thailand for a year, and I've already shared with the students some of that adventure, shown them pictures and told them about that experience. So if they've mentioned anything about Thailand or Asia, it's probably because of that. And so after my year there, I was looking for a job and was lucky enough to have St. Ambrose hire me on as a fifth grade teacher. And this will be the beginning of my third year here. So my philosophy about teaching. Obviously, I care deeply about teaching content to students and teaching to the state standards and helping them grow academically. But more than that, I want to help them foster a sense of enthusiasm for the world. I want them to always be striving for self-betterment, and I want them to be striving to be the best self they can be, and to help them bring themselves closer to God through prayer. Just a little bit about the curriculum that we'll be teaching. For language arts, we use Houghton Mifflin, which will look something like this. If you see your student bringing this home, this is their language arts reader. We go through stories once a week, and we help focus on comprehension and fluency. We also do various novel studies throughout the year, where the kids will be given the same novel, and we assign chapters at night and then go through comprehension and different activities through the day. And then we also focus heavily on writing, all the good stuff like complete sentences, conventions of writing, so grammar and all that, paragraph structure, but also stamina, just can they write for extended periods of time? Because we only know it gets more and more as they progress through the years. And we do some creative writing, and towards the end of the year, we culminate with them writing a research paper, an essay. In math, we cover all the following things you can see on the screen here. Start with place value, but the biggest things that we focus here in fifth grade are decimals and fractions. That's the big core of what we get at. But then as we progress, we get into things like expressions and algebraic thinking. For the time being, we have been in our own homerooms for math, but on the 10th, so I think it's a Friday, so Friday the 10th, we'll be sending out a letter in your students' Friday folder, which I'll talk about later, indicating which math class they will be in. Fifth grade is the first year that they will be split based on their readiness for certain topics. So Mrs. Marish, Ellie, and Mrs. Robbie, Bridget, and myself all teach a different class at different paces. So we'll be sending out that letter on the 10th indicating which class your student will be placed in. I guess I should mention further, the way we reach those placements are for students that are returning to St. Ambrose who were here last year, recommendations from fourth grade teachers. We look at their MAP scores, but then also we've done some assessment and review the first week of school and throughout this week to really make sure that we're comfortable with those students are. And for students that are new to St. Ambrose, it's getting to know them and what makes them tick, how they are just in general as a student, but really based off the math classes we've had so far with some reviews and assessments. These placements are by no means concrete and permanent. They are fluid. If we've placed a student in a class and it seems as if they need a little bit quicker pace to match their learning, we're okay with moving that student to be in the spot they need. And conversely, if a student is in a class but they feel as if they're lagging behind a bit and they're not feeling successful and the pace is a little bit too quick, we're more than okay placing that student in a class that fits their needs. So if you have any questions or concerns once those lists comes out, just feel free to reach me and I will be open and honest. For religion, we use this textbook when we are in the text. So if you see this pink book, this is religion. This just goes over the traditions and foundations in faith. But we also get into scripture this year, so we'll be reading from the Bible, specifically the Gospels a lot. We do lots of prayer in class. We have lots of discussion of virtues, and we have virtue circles. I try to do them once every 2 weeks or so, where we get together and have a meeting together as a class and really discuss what it means to be virtuous and how we're doing with that and kind of check in with each other. We have frequent visits from Father Peter, who comes and talks to all the 5th grade. They're usually about 20 minutes at a time. And this is a time when sometimes Father has an agenda of things that he would like to talk to the kids about specifically. But a lot of the times it's very much question and answer, where students are curious about various things. And Father Peter's a wonderful communicator and loves talking with the kids. So it's just great to have the students be able to talk with Father Peter in a non-mass setting. And we spend time in the church too, just outside of Mass. We'll go in there and do quiet prayer or reflection or learn about the space itself. And then also, like mentioned on the bottom, weekly Mass is on Wednesdays at 9:45. And for science, we do 3-week units at a time. And so we do science unit for 3 weeks, and then we switch to social studies. And then after social studies, back to science. So it's about 3 weeks at a time. And here's some of the various topics we cover. We just learned about the scientific method. Ask your kids about the Skittles lab. I think that was a very tasty part of learning. And then we'll be getting into animal adaptation soon. And also at the very bottom is mentioned STEM. Maybe once every 2 weeks, they have STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, upstairs with Miss Jorgensen, who does kind of creative, more engineering type projects with the students. So like I mentioned, social studies is flip-flopped with science every 3 weeks. So we haven't quite got into social studies yet, but here's some of the topics. We start with very early human migration, humans coming to North America. Then we get into the exploration age in the 1400s. Then we get to European settlement, life in the colonies, and we usually wrap up with the American Revolution. And then mixed in throughout a lot of these units and a standalone unit itself is Minnesota history and the Dakota and Ojibwe, Native Americans in Minnesota. Those are big parts of our standards. So moving on from curriculum, here's just a few things about communication if you want to know how to reach me. The number's listed at the top, but if you call during the day, there's a good likelihood that I might not be able to answer it because I'll be teaching. Email is preferred. That's right there on the screen too, but obviously feel free to call if that's easier, and you can always leave a message. If you know your student will miss school for any reason, please let me know as soon as possible. It just makes it easier for planning purposes and if that student needs to make up much work. And lastly on communication, just look for a weekly newsletter on Fridays with information regarding the class or the school in general. And that'll be emailed to you, by the way. Here's some weekly expectations for the students in class. Number one, we do something called a reading log. Many of the students were already familiar with this because they said they did something similar in 4th grade. But most weeks, not all weeks, if it's a short week or if I just want to alleviate their workload, they won't have it. But most weeks, students are expected to read for 1 hour independently. And then to log their reading, I just ask them, they write up to at minimum 3 comments about that selection that night. So they could read 15 minutes one night, 45 minutes another, and then take a few nights off, and that's fine. That covers the whole hour. This is what that looks like, by the way. It's usually on a salmon color, like pink colored sheet with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. No Friday, obviously, because it's due on Friday. And lastly, I ask that parents sign the bottom. This is just to ensure that a student isn't just kind of faking their way through the reading. We want them to choose books they like and read independently, but also keep them honest and make sure that they actually are doing that reading. So to help them stay on top of that, we do ask that parents sign that, and that gets turned in by Friday. Each Friday, there'll be a few select Fridays that I won't send it, but most Fridays, we send home a Friday folder. That's just with student work and then sometimes communications from the office, but mostly just student work. We do ask that you sign something inside of that Friday folder as well, just ensuring that that student is bringing home their work. Sometimes we'll have students that might not be as proud of their work, or they just don't think that their parents really care about their work. Like, why does my parent need to see this worksheet? And then they just lose the folder or just never end up showing it to you. So by having you sign that as well, that ensures that your student is actually sharing the things they're doing in class. And all students' Friday folder will be a big red folder. So if you see this floating around, this is most likely the student's Friday folder. And lastly, for a weekly expectation, we typically have spelling. I try to put the list in my newsletter every week so that for the following week, if students did want to get a head start, they could look at those spelling words. You might ask, well, why does it matter if my student has a head start? Because on Monday, or the first day of the week, we take a pre-test just to see how they are with all of the words. And if a student gets 100% on that pre-test, they then are exempt from the test, the final test, on that Friday. So a lot of times on Monday, it's fun to see the students coming in for those that practiced over the weekend or wanted to get that head start to see if they truly do know it and to see if they get out of that test on Friday. Moving on, here's some expectations about homework. So at the end of each day, the students and I will go over what homework they have that night. I have a big, you probably can't, well, you can see it, the grid on the wall there. It's a big calendar. So we write the homework on that calendar every night. And while we're writing that on the calendar, the students are also recording that on the backside of their homework, or on the backside of their reading log is a homework tracker. So it stays in one spot. And so they can write exactly what it is expected that night. And they should keep this in their accordion folder. So if you want to see it, you can just say, hey, grab your homework tracker out of your accordion folder. If for some reason they lose this, or you just want to have access to what their expected work is in another way, I always try to make a digital version of their tracker available on all of the students' Google Classroom. So you could just have your student log into the Google Classroom, and right on the home screen of the Google Classroom, there should be something that says homework tracker or weekly homework tracker. Late work will be accepted, but for reduced points. I don't take away too many points because I understand they're still 10 and 11 and there's a lot of other things going on in their lives. But I do give them a chance to make up that work. There's no homework over the weekends. That's something we feel strongly about here in 5th grade. Between all three of us teachers, is that homework, while it is important, doesn't necessarily need to be happening on Sunday, causing a lot of stress the last minute. We'd prefer that to be family time, sports time, hobby time, different clubs, different activities, time away from school. So there'd be, I don't want to say 100%, maybe 99.9% positive that there'll be no homework over a weekend. If your student misses an assignment throughout the week, they may be asked to stay in from our Friday Fun, which is essentially an extra recess for all the 5th grade at the end of the day on Fridays. And if they are asked to stay in, they'll be completing that work that they missed. So this is just another way to kind of keep the kids on top of their assignments, because they know at the end of the week, if they don't have that assignment, there's a chance they're going to miss that Friday Fun. Here's a little bit about our daily routine. So if you just need to make appointments or you need to know kind of where we'll be at a certain time, you can just pause the video if you want, just read through some of this here. The beginning of the day is just kids arriving, morning prayer, and kind of our morning meeting, all that. Recess and lunch is at 12:15 every day. And we kind of usually end our day starting around 3:30 when we go over homework. Parent pickup students are dismissed at 3:40, and then bus rider students are dismissed at 3:50. And again, pertaining to if you need to miss for appointments or whatever, if you need to know, hey, what are my kids missing, or what are times that might be most ideal, here's our specialist kind of and more schedule. Here's times we're not in our classroom. So again, you can just pause and take a look at that. And any time that is not listed here, we're most likely here in this class at room 116. And I think this is the last one, but just a little note about snack. Usually around 10:15 every day, we let our students eat a snack. Please keep this snack peanut free. So that's the option the student would just be eating at 10:30. Peanut options are allowed during lunchtime, but we just ask not for snack. And I also ask no candy or pop for obvious reasons. We don't need tons of sugar at 10:15 in the morning. And please make sure your student has a water bottle. This just makes everything go smoother. And especially last year during COVID protocols, the spigot part of the water fountain was actually turned off to not have students putting their mouths all in a similar spot, just to keep things hygienic. So we ask students to use water bottles. If they do forget, I have a disposable cups. They'll actually right here on my desk. We got a limited supply. I got more in a cupboard, but ideally I'd not like to run out of my cups in the first week. So please remember to send your student with a water bottle. And I believe that's most, if not all, the things that need to be covered here during this video. So I'd like to say thanks, and please feel free to reach out if you have any comments, questions, concerns. Yeah, and I look forward to a wonderful school year. Thanks, and I'll talk to you all soon.